Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of 100 Yards of Football Sports Talk Radio. I'm your host and producer, Logan Landers. Join me here today to talk about the 2024 New York Giants team preview. As always, my right-hand man, Mr. Football, Vincent Turner. How you doing this afternoon, sir?
Hey, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good today, Vincent. Excited to talk about this Giants team. Brand new look. They have a lot of pieces who are not returning from last year. We're going to break all that down. I'll be taking the offense. You'll be handling the defense. And of course, before we get into it, we want to thank all of you, the fans out there, for giving us likes, comments, shares on our social media channels on Facebook and YouTube, and also for downloading our podcast, which you can get each and every single week, thanks to the fine folks at the Believe Podcast Network. Well, Vincent, let's get into this, man. This New York Giants team is very interesting. So when you look at them, let's start obviously with the main guy up top, and that's going to be your quarterback in Daniel Jones, a guy who was hurt last season, only played in 6 games, and in those 6 games was not very impressive. 2 touchdowns, 6 INTs, and was sacked 30 times in just 6 games. Like we said, he went down with injury and did not play. And as Giants fans know, that contract is looking a little bit rougher every day. But who knows with Daniel Jones, he could come back, maybe healthier than ever after getting some time to rehab and look sharp this season. Rest of your team, normally you would say pencil in Saquon Barkley, but that is not the case anymore. He has went over to Philadelphia to face off against them. Now looking good in that Kelly Green every year now. So in steps Devin Singletary, the veteran. Has been putting up good numbers throughout his career. A reliable back last year. Finished with just under 900 yards, 4 touchdowns on 216 carries. As we know, he did some good work out there with the Houston Texans, with C.J. Stroud and company. Eric Gray's going to be your backup behind him. Then we look at the receiving core. And we all know their first-round selection this past year, number 6, that being out of LSU, Malik Nabers, a guy who they are hoping can step in there and be that number 1 target, that best receiver, that top receiver out there in New York, as soon and as quick as possible. Because looking at the rest of that team and the rest of that receiving core, I have no doubt in my mind that Malik Nabers will probably be first on the team in catches and in yards. But who else is going to be helping him? You also have a solid player in Jalen Hyatt. Jalen, as we know, drafted out of Tennessee, 3rd-round pick a couple of seasons ago. We'll see how he can do as a young player in this league, only 22. Rest of your guys, you're looking at guys like Darius Slayton, Allen Robinson, the second, good core there of some guys who've been in the league to help out for a little while. Isaiah Hodgins as well. And then, of course, Wan'Dale Robinson and Isaiah McKinney to help bolster your team there on the receiving core. But this is interesting, Vincent, because just in the past couple of days, the tight end position for this team has really changed. We all thought it was going to be Darren Waller, but to the surprise of a lot of people, he did announce his retirement a couple of days ago, age of 31. Hope he goes and lives his best life away from the game. But that's questioning a lot of people, though. Who's going to step in? Who's going to be that top tight end when you look at this team? Well, they did go in the draft. They did get Theo Johnson, round 4, pick 107 out of Penn State. I'm sure he was expecting to be primarily backup, fight for that backup spot, but now he might get pushed into that starting rotation. Other guys on your team there in your tight end slot, you're looking at Daniel Bellinger, a guy who last season put up numbers of only 25 catches, 255 yards, no touchdowns for that young man. But that's the thing is that they might have time to go out there, Vince, before all is said and done, pick up a veteran tight end perhaps, if they don't know if these young guys can get it done right off the bat. So it remains to be seen if this is going to be your 2 tight end system there with Bellinger, Theo Johnson. You also have guys like Jack Stoll and Chris Mannertz there on the roster, but it remains to be seen. And then we have to look, Vincent, at this offensive line, because the offensive line, it needs a little bit of work out there if you're Giants fans. And I say that because I mentioned just how many times Daniel Jones got sacked in 2022. But let's look at the rest of the team, though. I mean, Tommy DeVito sacked 37 times. Tyrod Taylor, 17 times. Vincent, all in all last year, they allowed 85 sacks on the offensive line. That's how your quarterback gets hurt. That's why you're starting running back is probably left town one reason or another. And let's talk about these guys who really need to step up their game if these Giants want to be successful on offense and put up some points this season. Looking at Andrew Thomas, guy out of Georgia. We know very well. We studied his game. We watched him grow, pick 4 overall a couple of seasons ago. Matt Nelson, Jermaine Elmore, John Michael Smith Jr., John Runyon, Evan Neal, another young guy who they drafted not too long ago as well. 2022 pick 7 overall. You need these guys to step up. That's it. You really need to. You need some guys who can go in there, learn the craft. I get they're still fresh in the league, most of those guys, but you have to keep your quarterback upright. You have to keep your running backs get through these holes and getting some crucial yardage, or else this team is not going to go anywhere on offense. We always say it's one in the trenches, and that's what these Giants need to do this year. They need to get their guys right, win those battles, and really just get things done so that way you can see a potentially healthy Daniel Jones once again this season. And we can see all that star power that Malik Neighbors has around him, see if that can come to light in year 1. That's my thoughts on the offense for the New York Giants. Vincent, I'll hand you over the rock, and you can talk about the defense.
When you look at the Giants, and I'm going to go back to Logan, the New York Giants history.
Okay, go right ahead.
During the Super Bowl years, I'm going to talk about their front. I'm going to say their front 7. They had a tackle out of LSU, Leonard Marshall, that was real good. They had a tackle out of Notre Dame that was real good, Eric Dorsey. But it was the linebacking core that made that team special, right? We all know about the legend himself. I don't have to pronounce his name. I'm going to use his initials today here on 100 Yards Football, LT. Then they had Carl Banks, they had Gary Reasons, and then they had Harry Carson. When I look at this Giants defense, remember what I just said. It started on the interior, and they had their great tackle out of LSU, Leonard Marshall. With Dexter Lawrence, he's starting to be that star of Neon Lights on Broadway. I know Dabo Swinney has got to be very proud of him down there at Clemson. Young man had 5 tackles from the D tackle position, but he was a shining light for the Giants defense last year. Then you're looking at, they got another star, Jordan Riley, out of the University of Oregon, who has a lot of potential. And then their linebacking core was very good. Bobby O out of Stanford, by way of the Indianapolis Colts, had 149 tackles last year. Micah McFadden out of the University of Indiana had 97 tackles last year. Then Deontay Banks is a guy that's developing into a lockdown corner out of the University of Maryland. Nick McLeod played pretty good football last year. And they drafted a safety by the name of Tyler Nubin. Remember that name, out of the University of Minnesota. Plays at a high level. He could be George Benson, the new star on Broadway. This is a New York Giants team that's got some very good young pieces that's now coming into their own. The New York Giants, their season, today we're talking about hot seats. Daniel Jones and Brian Daboll. That's all I got to say today about the New York Giants. Defensively, they got some nice pieces. I think they're going to take their game up another level defensively. Back to you, Mr. Landers.
Yes, sir, Mr. Turner. Thank you for that. When I look at this, go ahead.
And one more thing I want to mention when I'm talking about their D-line, want to show respect to the New York Giants fan base. I'm sorry that I didn't mention a young man that's starting to come into his own out of California, by the way, University of Oregon, by L.A., Kayvon Thibodeau, had 11 sacks last year. He's starting to really figure it out, and he might be a star in New York. And then they bring over Brian Burns, Florida State, a.k.a. from the Carolina Panthers, who can rush the passer. Like I said before I give it back to you, Mr. Landers, the Giants team has got some good young pieces on the defensive side of the football.
Yes, sir. You're not kidding. And my final thoughts on this team is, like you said, that defense is going to have to play lights out. They're going to have to get things going. The offense, there's a lot of question marks there. Like say, quarterback coming off of an injury. You lost your starting tight end a couple of days ago. You have a hot young receiver there at wide receiving core helping out there, and a talented crew behind him. Like I said before, Vincent, it's all about that O-line. If they can get things going, if they can keep their quarterback upright, and if they can get those running backs getting through those holes, that's how this team succeeds, I think, with solid defensive play. And if that offense can get things clicking, this could be a good season for the New York Giants. But we'll hear from you, though, our fans. What do you guys think? How will the Giants do this upcoming season? What their record will be? If they can maybe get to the playoffs? Let us know in the comments down below. As always, we appreciate it. For my co-host today, Mr. Football, Vincent Turner, thank you so much for coming on the show, talking about the New York Giants. I've been your host and producer, Logan Landers. Once again, if you liked the video, give us a like, follow, share, and subscribe. Facebook, as well as YouTube, and on our podcast, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else you listen to your shows, you can find us on there. And until next time, you can find us on another